can creativity fuel our faith and vice versa? I'm Tina Yeager, licensed therapist and life coach, host of Flourish-Meant podcast. And I'm coming to answer that question. Make sure that you listen all the way to the end. You're in for a treat. Today, I have Desmond Denton, who's an international motivational speaker. But even more than that, he is co-founder of A Story Studios. He's an author, a filmmaker, and he has just started creating this amazing project, among many others, brilliant visuals talking about the lives of artists and of how faith connects them with their creator and vice versa with their art. So, Desmond, I am excited about this topic today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's dive into why you felt led to talk about this. You've done several different movies from fiction to nonfiction documentary topics. Why this topic?
I think it came as a very personal matter. So I was at Capernaum Studios with the incredible Conscious with Tim Shields and the others, and we're busy with the earthquake film based on the Tilbach earthquake. And God just really put it into my heart that a lot of times we're busy with so many stories, but really, what is the story He wants me to be involved with? So as creatives, it's very easy to ponder up something and get busy and bring it to life, so to speak. And I just felt like this need. I've always loved art. I've always loved God, and it's kind of like how these two worlds come together. And in my studies, I've gone into a lot of details about how the incredible people like Mozart, Einstein, and all these who's, what is their lives looking like? And a lot of times it's very broken. If you look at some of these people, they've accomplished great things, but look at their lives, look at their family lives, look at kind of like a day in their life. And in that study, I was like, wow, it's quite, and even modern day, if we call them heroes or pop stars, you look at their lives and you feel like a lot of times it's very broken, although they accomplish interesting things. And I wanted to see, how does it look like for Christians? Not saying it's perfect, but finding master artists. So whether it's people building incredible Viking ships like we filmed in Norway for well-known film sets, or it is animators, just people doing different forms of art. So the project came from that personal perspective of wanting to explore, wanting to meet these people and showcase a day in their life, really showing how does all these elements, faith, art, money, family, how do you bring these things together? And how does it look different?
I so appreciate that you didn't define art so narrowly. Most people only have certain things that they think are art. Can you talk about this expanded view of what art actually means?
I mean, art is like a very good friend of mine always says, created to create. I mean, everything from our DNA to, if you look into nature, design. I grew up in South Africa, Cape Town. It's been voted as the design capital of the world many times. So I grew up with seeing design and art all around, whether it was in the music or it was in the textiles or it was in the way we tell stories. So if you ask me this question, I have to say that art is all around us in the clothing you choose, in the way you choose to portray yourself, in the way that you look at the design of a house. How does the space flow? And I've always been, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but I almost need to use it with art in a way that, how do you look at light? Whether it's in a painting, or how does a dancer use movement and flow to convey a story and make you feel? So art is multifaceted. Obviously, you can see it in a lot of different ways. And it's incredible for me as I get to know masters in different fields to see how do they envision art? What do they see as art? And how they kind of bring these elements together.
What does art have to do with faith? We see those two things very separately in today's culture, but they originally were not. Can you talk about that a little?
I think the church originally was a lot of time what we call the commissioner. A lot of the work of the Rembrandts and the well-known artists were commissioned by the church. So the church were crucial and involved in the place of art in the world. And therefore, these masterpieces were commissioned to be made. I think in today's world, there is, I think more than ever so, a role for church and church leaders to use art to change communities. Like you go into a community, it has beautiful plants, flowers, the way it feels like, the way at church. I've just traveled a few weeks ago to Ireland and visited some incredible churches. And you go in there and you just can't help but feel like the awe and wonder of God when you look at these few hundred years old buildings and you're like, wow, like they spend so much time to showcase His glory. So, I mean, for me, it shouldn't be two separate worlds, but often it is. A lot of times in my circle that I work in the film industry, a lot of artists don't feel welcome or they feel it's two separate worlds. There's the Christian film industry and those stories, and there's the rest of us. And I kind of find myself right in the middle of those two, where I feel I love art, I want to do stories, but yeah, it is a combination of doing it well, crafting it really well, and then obviously for the glory of God. But how that looks like is always an interesting question. But yeah, I agree with you. It shouldn't be two separate worlds. It should be in the way we do worship, in the way that we bring people in. It should be, and that the church open door so artists feel like this is a place where they're all welcomed and even commissioned.
If you look at it from a creation standpoint and God as the creator, he was the original artist, was he not? And we, being created in his image, are meant to make art, right? So when we do make art, it connects us with who we really were meant to be. And I think that is an act of worship. Sometimes in our brokenness, we still feel the need to create because that's who we are, but we don't know how to direct that with worship. Can you talk about the intersection of art and worship?
It's an interesting question. So I think what's interesting in every different in Christianity, obviously you have so many different forms of worship. Worship could be the art as it's portrayed in a church with a band. Worship could be for me, for example, in the way that I choose to spend my time, how I dedicate my time, what I do in the morning, how do I work on my art. And it's almost like, and this will sound strange, like I used to surf and I used to love being inside of our ocean, being between the dolphins and being on the wave. And just that feeling once you're on the wave and you're surfing, you're overwhelmed by something so much bigger than yourself. Yes, there's skill. Yes, there's a little bit of you, but there's something bigger. For me, worship is always that. When I'm busy making a film, I'm bringing people from all over the world together, doing a story. It's something bigger than me. It's not something I can just do. And a lot of times in doing my craft, I feel I'm busy with a form of worship. Other times it might be I'm sitting in silence or I'm traveling and I just feel like looking at these landscapes. It's a form of worship, just being quiet. But it's that concept of being taken over by something bigger than yourself whilst doing your craft or your part, like I mentioned in the surfing example.
Can you talk about the loneliness of an artist's life compared to the need for fellowship as we create art?
I think there's moments that you need to, and I think it's almost there's different stages of art. I think for a lot of artists, and same as filmmakers, you put on. You've studied at film school, and I've done that. I've got a few studies I've done, and you feel like, oh, I'm now a director. And I've recently spoke to a very well-known writer in the UK, and he said, well, you're only a good writer at 65, so there's hope for all of you guys. And I'm not saying that's true in regards to age, but it's just the thing of number one, being mentored. I don't think it needs to be such a lonely journey. I think we need to learn from masters, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going out, getting to know these people, seeing their lives, not just the art, the whole picture. But a lot of times I think people feel like, ooh, I'm the artist. I'm so good. Look at me. Look at my art. And then forget what it's really about. And therefore they are not in the right space to be mentored. I've seen it a lot of times when I had my commercial studio in Cape Town. Someone would come out and be like, "Hey, I've studied 3 years now. I'm a director. Can I get a directing job?" No, can you make coffee really well? And that sounds terrible, but you need to learn to serve before you will be served. So I think whether it's at church, if you want to connect as an artist, find ways, find places, whether it is at a charity organization that you're like, listen, I am an artist. I can paint beautiful murals. Like, how can your gift be connected to what other people do in their ministries or their jobs? So I think the path of loneliness is inevitable. There are moments that you need to go into the wilderness to really listen and hear God where He wants to take you. But I want to challenge that also and say, but there is a need for community. A community of artists to come together and do amazing things. Film, it's a huge community. So I love that. Every time the trucks pulls up or I'm in a different country and the filmmakers come together, the artists come together. So I'm in between the community, but my first community is always my home, my church, my close friends. So between projects, I always come back to my first community and priority.
Interesting parallels there with discipleship in that process. And if we are created to create, to honor and glorify who created us, then certainly we do need discipleship and fellowship in our giftings. And art is one of those giftings that gets better as we learn more and grow more in community. So that's really fascinating. how can people stay connected with you, speaking of community and learning from people who are masters, and look at the new, beautiful projects that you have out there and the upcoming film 24?
Yeah, so for 24, the easiest is really just to follow me personally. There's a Instagram director Des. So the word director, first part of my name, DES. They'll find me. We also have Instagram for 24. So they message me, I can share it with them. Or go to my website, desmonddenton.com. I keep on updating and sharing news where we are, where we're talking. I'll be at NRB next month. So I'm very excited about being there, talking about this new series we're doing, 24, featuring 24 artists all around the world.
I hope that all of you listening were inspired to embrace art and seek it out for yourselves so that you can fulfill the best of who you are in connection with your creator. And of course, I also hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant.